At the end of the day, since we are selling life insurance, at some point the claims are going to have to be paid. Okay, so what happens during that particular time? So in other words, claims payment. Okay, first thing obviously is the insurance company has to receive some kind of notice of claim. In other words, the client has in fact died. Usually what will happen is that notice of claim will come through from the agent, for example, may be notified, the attorney may be notified. There's a number of different ways anyways that basically the insurance company will be notified that there is a death, basically a notice of claim will be coming through and everything else, okay? So once they receive all that, what happens then is the insurance company will demand certain paperwork, in other words, to prove that in actual fact this has happened, and therefore there's what we call a proof of claim. Okay, and the very first thing we want, obviously, besides the claim application itself, is of course the death certificate. We need proof that this person actually died, and of course that's always available through the coroner's or the funeral home or whatever the case may be. Okay, a death certificate. We also would like to have proof of age. You will recall that sometimes people do make a mistake in terms of how old they really are. Okay, and it could be, you know, no particular reason to make that mistake. It's just a mistake, and that's it. So we do need proof. So if you said that you were 30 years old, and in actual fact upon your death we actually discovered that you were 35, we wouldn't cancel the contract because we would have insured you 35 anyways. All we're going to do basically is adjust the amount of coverage that you would get with the same premium. How much would that same premium buy you at age 35? So if, for example, at age 30, $50 a month bought you $500,000. Now at age 35, $50 a month will only buy you $400,000. Let's say, so you get $400,000, and vice versa. By the way, it could be that you say you're 35, not in fact you're 30. So it could work. It basically works both ways. So we do need proof of age. Okay. Also, proof of identity. We want to make sure that you've got the right body. In other words, it's really you that's dead. In other words, it's the life insured in the policy, the same person that's sitting in the morgue at this point. So make sure that we have the right body and everything. So proof of identity is very important. Okay. The other thing is that, let's say it was there was some kind of an accident. Was it in fact an accident? Remember that when you have any kind of provision like actual death and dismemberment or actual death benefit, you know, where it pays twice the amount, let's say, if you died of an accident, or it pays you an extra $100,000, an extra $500,000, if in fact it was an actual death disability benefit of some sort, whatever, but it has to be an accident. So sometimes if we notice that, says, well, we want proof that in actual fact it was an accident. So, for example, the person committed suicide, we're not going to pay. Okay, yes, on a normal policy, even without the actual death benefit, the first 2 years, as you know, the suicide, they won't pay anyways. But let's say it's well beyond the 2 years. And then, of course, on the normal policy, we would pay. Okay, a suicide clause only for the first 2 years. However, let's say that you had an accidental death component to that policy as well, so that it doubled the coverage, let's say. But it could be, it is now discovered that in actual fact, you committed suicide. They'll pay on the natural amount, okay, the base that's up, but they're not going to pay for the accidental death portion because it was suicide, okay? So suicide is simply not covered. Remember, the definition of an accident is an unforeseen event. So the fact that you committed suicide, that was a choice that you made, and so therefore we were not going to pay on that, okay? There could be also exclusions on this. So, for example, if in your contract we're saying that as long as you're scuba diving, we're not going to pay, then you died of, it can be proven that you died because you were scuba diving and there was this scuba diving exclusion in your contract, we're not going to pay. It could be skydiving. It could be all sorts of different things. Anything that we put in the contract that says we will not insure you while you are performing this particular hobby, whatever. Okay. In other words, a dangerous sports type of clause in there. Then obviously we're not going to pay on that as well. Okay. So there are a number of situations where you might find that the insurance company will simply say no, based on everything we've heard, we cannot, in fact, we cannot pay the coverage here at all. Okay. So at the end, let's assume that everything's wonderful, it's going to pay, the claimant comes along. The claimant, of course, is being the beneficiary. That beneficiary has to prove that they are, in fact, the beneficiary. In other words, it can't be a situation where just anybody shows up and says, I'm he or I'm she, give me my check or whatever it is. You have to actually prove that, yes, the name of the beneficiary is this, and you are, in fact, that person, okay? So, again, they're going to scrutinize this and make sure that we're giving the money out to the proper individual. Because if we pay it out to you, then all of a sudden somebody else shows up and in actual fact they are the real beneficiaries. You can see how this can become a real big problem. So therefore, the claimant themselves also have to come forward with some kind of proof that yes, I am who I am, and I am that beneficiary and everything. Okay? What happens if the client simply disappears? Every once in a while, you hear of somebody simply, they disappear out of thin air, whatever it was, they've gone missing. So we have no body to prove. We've got absolutely nothing, okay, to prove it. Okay? So if the individual, in fact, does disappear, and there was reasonable reason to believe that they could possibly could be dead and everything else, but we don't have an actual body. We have no proof that in actual fact this person actually did die. Okay. Usually, what happens is the insurance company will wait for 7 years, and at the 7th year, then you can apply. The claimant can apply to the court, basically say, okay. And the court will then declare the individual legally dead, at which time then the proceeds will be paid and everything else. Okay, but it is a situation where you have to wait basically for 7 years, and then the court will in fact basically say yes, you're declared legally dead, and so now you can claim your claim, and the proceeds will arrive. It could happen earlier. It could happen earlier in that it is a reasonable person would say yes. The boat capsized and the individual never resurfaced, okay? So even though we never found a body, it is more than likely that, yes, that person has disappeared because of that particular accident. So in that case, you don't have to wait for the 7 years. There is a presumption of death because of the circumstances that surround it. The plane went down, all kinds of bodies, but we never found your body. Okay, but again, it could be reasonably assumed that yes, you were on that plane, you're not resurfaced, whatever it is, and so therefore, the presumption of death is there as well. So in those cases, the court could in fact say, okay, there's every possibility here that the person perished, even though we don't have actual proof that the person did perish because of that particular incident and everything else. So therefore, you can apply for the claim well before the 7 years. And again, the courts have to be involved in all this. So this can take some time and everything else. But nonetheless, we're doing this to make sure that there's no false claims. Okay, that's the whole idea, is that make sure that the right individual gets the money for the right reasons and not because they're trying to commit fraud or anything to deceive the insurance company. And for now, we'll leave it where it is. So thank you. Talk to you later.